Now, nearly 90 years later, a team of explorers believes they may have discovered the location of Amelia Earhart's missing plane in the Pacific Ocean.
The founder of an ocean exploration company believes he may have solved the mystery of Amelia Earhart's disappearance.
The disappearance of female pilot Amelia Earhart during her round-the-world air voyage.
Just now, after 87 years, the mystery of Amelia Earhart's disappearance has cracked wide open. Her plane was discovered. In 1937, she vanished while attempting a global flight, leaving the world in suspense. Her unexpected stop at a remote farm not only shook up some local cows, but sparked decades of speculation and mystery. What secrets might her newly uncovered plane reveal about her last moments? Tune in as we dig into the specific details of where and how Amelia's plane was finally found. Amelia Earhart's final flight. In 1937, Amelia Earhart disappeared while trying to fly around the world. Her sudden disappearance sparked a lot of curiosity, and many wondered what had happened to her. Right before she vanished, she made an unexpected landing near a farm, which startled some cows. As the propellers of her plane finally halted, an eerie silence fell over the field, broken only by the lowing of the disturbed cattle. Amelia was well known for her amazing flying skills and her adventurous nature. She became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, inspiring many with her bravery. Later that same year, her plane disappeared over the Pacific Ocean, and both she and her navigator, Fred Noonan, were never seen again. Over the years, people have come up with different ideas about what might have happened, but no solid proof was found until 87 years later, when a surprising discovery brought her story back into the spotlight. She was born on July 24, 1897, in Atchison, Kansas. She grew up in a loving home with her parents, Edwin and Amy Earhart, and her younger sister, Muriel. Even as a child, she was adventurous, loving to climb trees, hunt, and collect bugs. These early experiences showed her fearless attitude. Her education wasn't very stable because her father's job made the family move a lot. Despite the changes, she was always a curious and smart student who loved to read. She finished high school in 1915 in Chicago. Afterwards, she briefly went to a junior college in Pennsylvania, but soon left to help as a nurse in Toronto during World War I. After the war, she came back to the United States and started studying medicine at Columbia University in New York. But her life changed in a big way in 1920 when she went to an air show in Long Beach, California. There, she took a 10-minute flight that made her fall in love with flying. By January of 1921, she had started taking flying lessons from Netta Snook, an early female pilot near Long Beach. To pay for her lessons and buy her first plane, a yellow Kinner Airster she called the Canary, she worked as a truck driver and a stenographer. Work paid off when she got her pilot's license in May of 1923, becoming one of the first women to do so. She quickly caught the attention of the flying world public. In 1928, she was invited by publisher George P. Putnam to be part of a crew for a transatlantic flight. Even though she wasn't the pilot, she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic as a passenger. She faced many problems, like mechanical issues and bad weather, and took about 20 hours. Despite the challenges, they landed safely in Wales. This trip made her internationally famous, a key moment in her flying career. She became a symbol of strength and courage, continuing to push boundaries for women and achieving incredible things in the world of aviation. In 1932, her fame reached new heights when she became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. This achievement not only earned her more recognition, but also secured her place as a leader for women breaking into male-dominated fields. She set off alone from Harbor Grace in Newfoundland. 15 hours and 18 minutes, she landed in a field in Culmore, Northern Ireland. This amazing flight made her the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean without stopping. It showed her incredible skills as a pilot and pushed against what society thought women could do. Lots of women all over the world. After this flight, she continued to break more aviation records. She was the first to fly solo from Honolulu, Hawaii, to Oakland, California, and the first woman to make a non-stop solo flight from Los Angeles to Newark, New Jersey. Each of these achievements helped make her a leader in aviation and a symbol of courage and determination. Her journey didn't just break records, it took her around the world. Navigating Earhart's final flight. Amelia Earhart didn't just set records, fought hard for women's rights, arguing that women were just as capable as men in every area, including flying. Her courage and groundbreaking efforts prepared the way for future female pilots and inspired millions around the world. The plan to fly around the world started on June 1, 1937, from Miami, Florida, with her navigator, Fred Noonan. They flew in a Lockheed Electra 10E heading east. Their trip took them through many stops across continents from South America to Africa, Asia, dealing with tough weather and relying a lot on radio for navigation. People worldwide followed their journey closely, which was often in the news. But this wasn't the smoothest part of their journey. As they continued through India, Thailand, and Indonesia, each leg of the trip brought new challenges, like stormy weather and tricky landing spots. Despite these issues, she was determined to be the first woman to fly around the world by air. By early July, they reached Lae, Papua New Guinea. Here they got ready for what would be the hardest part of their trip, a long flight over the Pacific Ocean to Howland Island, a tiny dot in the huge ocean, important for refueling. On July 2, 1937, they took off from Lae towards Howland Island. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca was there at Howland to help with navigation and communication. But despite careful plans and the Itasca's help, they had big problems talking to each other, and her plane never made it to Howland Island. Her last messages said they were running out of fuel and couldn't find the island. But this wasn't the worst part. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan led to one of the biggest search efforts in history, covering over 250,000 square miles of ocean by the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard. Yet no trace of them or their aircraft was ever found. This sparked a huge public interest in many theories about what happened to them. Her last known location was near a remote Pacific island called Howland Island during her daring global flight attempt. Howland Island was picked as an important stop in her long flight because of its location, making it a good place to refuel and check their navigation tools. The flight from Lae to Howland Island covered over 2,500 miles across the wide Pacific Ocean. Even though she and her navigator, Fred Noonan, had carefully prepared and had help from the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca, which was near Howland to assist with radio and navigation, they faced serious problems. On July 2, 1937, as they got closer to Howland Island, the communication between her and the Itasca became spotty and full of misunderstandings. Her radio messages were coming through, but not clearly, which made it hard for the Itasca to guide them to the exact location of the island. In one of her last messages, she mentioned that they were running low on fuel and were having trouble finding the island. But this wasn't the worst part. Despite many search efforts by the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard, right after they disappeared, no sign of them or their plane, the Lockheed Electra, was found in those first days. Her last known radio message, received around 8:43 in the morning, Howland Island time, showed how desperate they were. She said they were close to the island, but couldn't see it and had very little fuel left. After that, there were no more successful communications, and their plane simply vanished. A massive search began, sparking endless theories about her fate. The intense hunt for Earhart and Noonan. The U.S. responded by launching a large search and rescue mission. They sent out ships, aircraft, and more Coast Guard vessels to search the vast areas of the Pacific where Amelia Earhart and Noonan could have ended up. The search centered on the flight path between New Guinea and Howland Island and focused on where the plane might have gone based on how much fuel was left. The USS Lexington and other ships and planes covered thousands of square miles of ocean, hoping to find any trace of them. However, despite all this effort, they found nothing. And after weeks of searching with no results, they had to stop, knowing the chances of finding them alive were very slim. But this didn't stop people from wondering. Over time, many ideas and theories have come up about what happened to Earhart and Noonan. Some believe they crashed into the sea, while others think they may have reached a distant island before they died. With no clear evidence, people have continued to speculate, coming up with many different theories and still searching for answers to one of aviation's biggest mysteries. Earhart's last journey started on June 1, 1937, when she and Noonan set out on an ambitious flight around the world. Their plane, a Lockheed Electra, was equipped with advanced radio tools, which were key for crossing the Pacific Ocean. However, throughout their journey, they faced many challenges, such as bad weather, poor visibility, and problems with navigation. These challenges became most serious as they tried to find Halted Island, a tiny speck in the enormous ocean. Their final hours were marked by unclear distress signals and broken communications, leaving a tragic mystery in their wake. Radio signals got mixed up as they tried to reach the plane, the Itasca, even though it was doing its best to guide them safely. The last message from the pilot said, "We are running north and south," which showed how lost and desperate they were. Soon after, all contact was lost. The U.S. Navy launched a massive search across 250,000 square miles of ocean. But they found no trace of them or their plane, the Electra. Even after the search, radio signals and claimed sightings kept the mystery alive. Some people believed that they might have survived a crash and waited on a deserted island for help. One interesting theory suggests that Earhart may have been secretly gathering information for the U.S. government because tensions with Japan were rising before World War II. With her fame and flying skills, she could have been scouting military sites in the Pacific. In April 1937, just before her final flight, she met with two of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's advisors, Bernard Baruch and Oscar Westover, at March Army Airfield in California. The secret nature of this meeting led many to think she might have been discussing a spy mission. Suspicion also grew when she changed her flight plan. Instead of flying west from Oakland, California to Hawaii as originally planned, she flew east from Miami toward Halted Island, bringing her close to the Japanese-controlled Marshall Islands, possibly for covert observations. But this wasn't the most puzzling part. Her plane, a Lockheed Electra, was fitted with advanced radios and navigation equipment. These could have been used for spying, like listening to radio signals or taking a closer look at Japanese areas. Some unconfirmed reports even say that after crashing in the Marshall Islands, she and Noonan were captured by the Japanese military. Years passed, but mystery still surrounded what happened to her, the woman behind the mystery. Years later, a new theory emerged, claiming Amelia survived and lived under a different identity. In 1970, Joe Klaus published a book called Amelia Earhart Lives, in which he argued that after being captured, she was secretly sent back to the U.S. and lived as a woman named Irene Bolam. This theory gained more attention in the 1990s when a journalist named Randall Brink said he had proof to support it. He found Irene Bolam in New Jersey, and she looked a lot like Earhart and shared many of her interests, like working with women's groups. It's interesting to note that before the mid-1940s, there was no known history of a woman named Bolam. This made some people think she might have taken on a new identity. Those who believed this idea pointed out that Bolam and Earhart looked alike, and they found some gaps in Bolam's life story. Despite these claims, Bolam denied everything and even sued people for spreading these rumors. She clearly said, "I am not some hidden woman. I am not an heiress." But this wasn't the most shocking part. A retired psychologist, James Francis Kelly, claimed that Archbishop Francis Joseph Spellman asked him to help her return to the United States after she disappeared. According to Kelly, Earhart had changed her identity to stay out of the spotlight and live a quiet life. In 1940, 3 years after she went missing over the Pacific Ocean during her attempt to fly around the world, something significant was found on Gardner Island, which is now called Nikumaroro. British explorers discovered several items on this empty island, which caught the attention of people all around the world. Among these discoveries were 13 human bones, believed to belong to a woman. This immediately led to speculation about whether they were Earhart's or her navigator, Fred Noonan's. This discovery brought new hope to those who had been trying to solve the mystery of what happened to them. Along with the bones, other items were found, such as a piece of plexiglass similar to the kind used in the windows of Earhart's plane, a woman's shoe from the 1930s, makeshift tools, and a makeup jar from that era. These items suggested that someone from her time might have been on the island. But things took a devastating turn. The bones and the other items were sent to Fiji for further investigation to determine if they belonged to Earhart. But then they were lost. This loss left everyone in doubt about where the bones came from, and some even whispered that maybe they were lost on purpose to keep the truth hidden. Yet this wasn't the only strange detail. An unclear photo seemed to show what might have been a part of her plane, possibly the landing gear. The island itself added to the mystery. Gardner Island, with its dense forests and rough landscape, made it hard to fully search at this time. On top of that, the island was home to giant coconut crabs, which are known to hunt large creatures. adding another layer to the mystery of what could have happened to her and Noonan if they had survived the crash. Decades later, on July 20th, 2024, it was announced that her plane had been found. This marked a huge moment in aviation history and gave some closure to those fascinated by her story since 1937. The discovery was made by Robert Ballard, the same person who found the Titanic. Supported by National Geographic, Ballard's team focused on the area around Nikumaroro using advanced sonar technology to search for her Lockheed Model 10 Electra, believing it might have ended up there. The search continued, leading to new discoveries. Ballard's quest for the lost Electra. Using advanced technology on his research ship, Dr. Robert Ballard and his team carefully explored the ocean floor near Nikumaroro Island. After a lot of hard work, they found a site with debris that seemed to match the size and build of Amelia Earhart's airplane. About 2,000 feet deep underwater, they found parts of a plane that looked very similar to Earhart's Lockheed Electra. Ballard's crew, made up of marine archaeologists and forensic specialists, took their time documenting and collecting pieces of the wreck. They found parts of the plane's body, engine, and various metal fragments that looked just like those from the Lockheed Electra. These finds strongly suggested they had located Earhart's missing plane. But to be sure, they had to do more work. They compared the pieces they found with old records and photos of Earhart's plane. Experts from the National Transportation Safety Board, Lockheed Martin, and historians familiar with Earhart's last flight all worked together to confirm the wreckage was real. The team used remote-controlled vehicles to carefully lift the artifacts and plane parts from the seabed. Each piece was cataloged and preserved so researchers could study them more closely. They also took samples of the dirt and sand around the wreckage, which was important to understanding how the environment may have affected the plane. These samples could help determine how long the wreck had been there and give clues about what might have happened to Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan. But this wasn't the most surprising discovery. The location of the wreckage near Nikumaroro gives support to the idea that Earhart and Noonan might have survived a crash landing and lived on the island for a time before they died. This theory is backed up by earlier discoveries on the island, like a woman's shoe and other items that might have belonged to Earhart. Finding the wreckage doesn't just solve a historical mystery, it also celebrates the spirit of exploration and the quest for knowledge. It brings some closure to the families of Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan, honoring their contributions to aviation. The items recovered will be preserved and studied for years, offering new details about one of the most intriguing events of the 20th century. As more information comes to light, Amelia Earhart's story continues to capture the imagination of people around the world. This discovery serves as a tribute to her legacy as a pioneer in aviation whose courage has left a lasting impact. On May 20th, 1932, Amelia made history as the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. She took off from Newfoundland, Canada, and landed in a field near Londonderry, Northern Ireland, after a difficult 14-hour flight. This achievement brought her international fame and admiration. But this wasn't her greatest challenge. In 1937, Amelia set out on an even more daring mission, a flight around the world along the equator. Sadly, her journey ended in mystery when her plane vanished over the Pacific Ocean near Howland Island. Despite many searches, neither Amelia nor Fred Noonan were ever found, fueling endless debates and theories about their fate. Amelia Earhart's dedication to women's rights and her role in founding the 99s, an organization for female pilots, continues to inspire people today. Her story has been celebrated in countless books, movies, and documentaries, ensuring her legacy lives on. Amelia Earhart's adventurous spirit and determination remind us all that with enough courage and persistence, we can overcome obstacles and make our dreams come true. What do you think really happened to Amelia Earhart? Share your theories below, and if you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.